Hey, what's up guys? It's Steven. Now, when I was starting out on my journey as an entrepreneur, I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to own a business to leave a legacy, and I knew that I wanted to be wealthy. Now, at the time, YouTube was popping off with videos about reading is the way to become successful. And not having really a better idea, I started reading. This video is about the 5 books that I've discovered along the journey that by and large have played a big role in making me hundreds of thousands of dollars and amassing a good portion of my net worth. So without further ado, here are the 5 books that I've found most useful. Book number 1 and book number 2 are honestly kind of one and the same. They're The Intelligent Investor and Security Analysis by Benjamin Graham. Now, when I was getting started, I was probably a sophomore in college and I didn't know a whole bunch. Didn't think I was smart enough to really figure out some cool, innovative company that I wanted to do on my own. So I figured I could maybe be an investor. Now, at the time, I already had some investments that were an okay size, and I said, okay, let me just figure out investing more. Now, not knowing very much about investing, I figured I needed a mentor. And so I thought about who is the best investor that I know of. At the time, the only thing I could think of is Warren Buffett. And I went to see if he had any books to try and, be a mentor towards me. Now, Warren Buffett's never written any books. He's made his fortune by investing. But he did have a mentor named Benjamin Graham, who did write books and was a professor at Columbia University. Benjamin Graham wrote Security Analysis and The Intelligent Investor and was the mentor of Warren Buffett. So it makes sense, maybe then I'll study what his mentor taught. At least that was my mindset. Now, these books in and of themselves weren't necessarily super useful to me. They were definitely very thick and very hard reads, and they were kind of in older English. But what they did teach me is that there's more to understanding a company than just its stock charts. There is this whole idea of fundamental analysis, of actually reading the annual reports or quarterly reports and seeing a business as a whole. And oftentimes there's different parts of businesses that aren't accounted for in the quoted stock price, and this is a valuation discrepancy. Basically, it taught me that markets aren't always efficient and that I should pursue this idea of fundamental analysis. Now, a lot of different things I had to go and find out on my own later down the road, which eventually led me to intrinsic valuation, discounted cash flow. I figured it out, and that is the mindset and the viewpoint that I invest from today. But I wouldn't have gotten there without those books and grueling through them, even if I went to a finance program at a university. So if that's book number 1 and number 2, book number 3 is What It Takes by Stephen Schwarzman. Now, if you don't know who Stephen Schwarzman is the founder of Blackstone, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, private equity firm in the world, and owns a massive, massive real estate portfolio. Now, this book about What It Takes by Stephen Schwarzman is his documentary of building Blackstone. And I enjoy listening to how people built different businesses. And a few takeaways that I got from listening to Stephen Schwarzman, the founder of Blackstone, building his business, was that industries change. Something that might have been an opportunity 30 years ago is no longer an opportunity today. For example, somebody's job path and career path 30 years ago is probably not a viable option for people today. So if your father or mother had one path, the odds of you taking that same path to get to where they had is actually probably pretty low. For example, Stephen Schwarzman talked about when he entered Wall Street, firms were actually very small. Maybe a firm that you know of today that's prestigious or whatever might have only had 100 employees, and it was a lot easier for people to get in than today. And when I say people, I mean people that have absolutely no shot of going to one of those prestigious firms today because the gatekeepers, HR, is not going to let them get in. And so that was an opportunity for a lot of people then. The other thing is that it doesn't matter how prestigious you get along the way, sometimes it's still going to be incredibly difficult. And what I mean by this is he tells the story of when he started his first fund at Blackstone. Even though a bunch of people knew him, he still didn't get a bunch of buy-in. He had to knock on hundreds and hundreds of doors and hear no. People flaked on him, didn't show up for meetings, and so on. To me, I relate to this quite a bit because I'm sort of in a similar industry as him, and I've had experiences like that. So hearing somebody who's old in the game while I'm young in the game, it gives me encouragement that there is a destination eventually I can get to. Now, book number 4, I would say, is 0 to 1. This is written by Peter Thiel. If you don't know Peter Thiel is one of the founders of PayPal, along with other founders such as Elon Musk. I relate to Peter Thiel because Peter Thiel actually came from the finance route. He had a hedge fund. That's really how he got introduced into what became PayPal. Now, in this book, which I would honestly recommend as probably out of all the books that I'm recommending right now as the first book to read, because it's easy, it's not too long, and there's a lot of really good points straight off the bat. But out of this book, there's two big points that I really like the most, or that are probably the most important to understand. And I'll just read them to you. Starting off with point number 1 is literally on the opening page of his book. He says, when I interview someone for a job, I like to ask a question. What important truth do very few people agree with you on? This question sounds easy because it's straightforward. Actually, it's very hard to answer. It's intellectually difficult because the knowledge that everyone is taught in school is by definition agreed upon. And it is psychologically difficult because anyone trying to answer must say something they know to be unpopular. Here's the point. He says, brilliant thinking is rare, but courage is in even shorter supply than genius. And that is why I have Fortune Favors the Brave on the side of my wall back here. It's not because I'm saying to be reckless or just go and take whatever type of investment. It's because too often, and maybe I'll make a video about this, too often I've known what to do in making investments. I've done the work, I've done the fundamental analysis, I've done the valuation, I know what it's worth, and I didn't pull the trigger because I was afraid. I worked really hard to make this money, and the last thing I want is to lose it. And so I was fearful that if I went and actually did make the decision, I would lose the money. But here's the thing, if you don't make the decision, you're never going to move forward. Point number 2 in this book, which is something that I struggled with very hard starting out, was understanding the importance of marketing and sales. He goes on to say that everyone is actually in the business of sales. It's not good enough just to have a really great, groundbreaking, revolutionary product. PayPal in and of itself wasn't going to be successful if it didn't know how to sell. As a matter of fact, he says that even the nerds building the programs on page 139, even they must be in the business of learning how to sell and sell the product. Which brings me to my 5th and final book, Sell or Be Sold by Grant Cardone. Now, I'm recommending this book not necessarily because of the book alone, but more so because of the author, Grant Cardone. Now, not everybody likes Grant, but I do, because Grant has done a lot for me, specifically in real estate. There have been times when I was too afraid or I needed extra help of understanding how to value real estate. And it was because of Grant and watching Grant that I slowly started to understand how to underwrite and value real estate, and more importantly, gained the confidence. Back to Fortune Favors the Brave. I gained the confidence to eventually be able to pull the trigger. In this book, he hits that point. And this is the recommendation that I would make to college students, which is no one will pay you for what you know, they'll pay you for what you do. Even though there were tons of different real estate investments that I knew were good, since I didn't make them, I didn't make money. There were times in the stock market where I knew stocks were good investments. I knew it from a fundamental intrinsic valuation perspective, and I knew that they were so mispriced that it's very unlikely that they were going to stay there very long. Well, it turned out that I was right and it took off. I knew that, but I didn't do anything about it. So I made no money. I probably lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in opportunity cost, if not more. An insane amount of money for somebody who's in their 20s. The other thing that I would say, very important from this book, Sell or Be Sold, or just Grant Cardone in general, comes right here when he says, whatever you think you need to do to get a job done, increase the amount far more than you think is necessary, and you'll get results beyond your wildest expectations. Now, if you don't like Grant, you might know of Alex Hormozi, you might like him, where he says, do so much volume that would be unreasonable for you to not be successful. I would say the same thing. Do so much work and effort on the things that are meaningful that it would be unreasonable for you not to be successful. For most businesses, in the beginning, that's sales and marketing. If you make 100 cold calls a day, every day, for 100 days, it would be unreasonable for you not to be successful. I didn't understand that when I was getting started until I started reading books like this, introduced to authors like Grant Cardone, authors like Peter Thiel. Go look him up. He's made a ton of money through investing, and that's why these books are so valuable to me. Sell or Be Sold. It's about sales. I'm an investor, but I'm still in the sales business. I didn't get that, and that's why I struggled way longer than I needed to. All in all, these books have been very key to me being successful, to getting to the point that I am on the come up. I'm still on the come up, and I'm still going to use these to that 10th degree and get even further. I think the biggest thing to take away though is that none of these books are necessarily tactical. They're not cookbooks. They're not put sugar and lemon juice and whatever and you'll get some pie. No, these books are mental framework books. And as much as I hate being the YouTube guy who's like, mental framework, I know at least for me, my view of the world when I started, or view of business, was not good enough to get me to be successful, because it was wrong. And it was wrong because I had listened to people who had never been in business. They didn't understand sale. They might say, if you have the best product in the world, it'll sell. That's wrong. The best known product in the world is better than the best product in the world. And if you just happen to have the best product in the world and it is the best known, then you make fortunes. That's how you get Apple. The reason Tesla, or the reason Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and so on are valuable is because they were able to sell and market. But it took them a long ass time to do that and a ton of money. I would not have understood that if it wouldn't have been for reading books like that and studying those authors. I highly recommend you do the same. All in all, I hope you got some value out of this video. I'm very confident, besides the first two books, that if you read 0 to 1 or Sell or Be Sold, study their authors, you read about Steve Schwartzman, you will move very much forward. I highly recommend do that. I hope you got some value out of this. I hope you like, share, and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one, because I'm going to continue to make better and better videos.